It took us a while to get here after 3 days of racing action here at Lucas Oil Speedway, but finally, the cars and stars of the Super Dirt Late Models are in the staging area behind the Bill Roberts Chevrolet Pace Truck. They set the lights ablaze on that Chevy pickup that is headed out, and behind it, 22 Super Dirt Late Models. 10 grand to win, 50 times around. Here at Lucas Oil Speedway, we started with 35, and we are down to 22, and after Daniel Hilsebeck won on night number 1, he is AWOL, attending a wedding tonight. So tonight is up for grabs. A couple of new faces that were not here just one night ago, already slated to roll off in the top 5, and a couple of familiar faces from just one night ago will try to make amends after a second-place finish and blowing up in the heat race. The way your starting grid will line up for our 50-lap main. Prime time Tony Jackson Jr., a 2-time MLRA champion and 3-time winner on the season out of Lebanon, Missouri in the 56, will be on the pole. Outside of him, a gentleman that has won 16 times, including his first ever Super Dirt Late Model win here at Lucas Oil Speedway in his career. Tyler Wolf out of Fayetteville, Arkansas, starting outside row number 1. Last night, after leading his heat race, issues with the fan blade on his radiator goes through and it pops, and Mason Oberkramer had to drop by the wayside. He will start inside row number 2, and Chris Simpson, who won here twice during the Ron Jenkins Memorial, finished second here last night. He will start in P4. Inside row number 3, a former Show Me 100 winner in Peyton Looney out of Republic, Missouri. Behind the wheel of the 15, and the man I'm going to keep an eye on, Caden McWhorter out of Fairbury, Illinois in the 99. He will start in 6th. A 3-time World of Outlaws winner, Frank Heckenast Jr. out of Frankfort, Illinois, will start in 7th. The Red Hot Chili Pepper, Caden Cladd on his outside in the 50. Dylan McCowan, the hot shoe from Urbana, in the number 8, will start inside row number 5. And rounding out your top 10 starting positions, Kylan Garner out of Neosho, Missouri in the 128. Darren Klein and Justin Wells start back in row number 6. Turbo Tyler Kuykendall from Warsaw, Missouri in the 8K. And Aaron Moran, a former ULMA champion out of Richmond, Missouri in the 1X. Gordy Gundaker and Jimmy Van Zant back in row number 8. Migo, Kansas's Brandon Conkrite starting in 17th with Scott Krigler on his outside. Cole Wells and Raymond Merrill in row number 10, and Chevy Boyer has Trevi Gundaker outside of him. The stars and cars line up 4 wide as a salute to you, the fans, here at Lucas Oil Speedway down the front stretch. Then they will get lined out, ready to go again behind the Bill Roberts Chevrolet Pace Truck. After the track work was done, the drivers were asked to roll around the middle and the bottom of the track just to make sure that they had a good feel for how these cars would take off on that initial drop of the green flag. And the 2 guys on the front row have storied histories here at Lucas Oil Speedway. Tony Jackson Jr. in the 56 has won here on multiple occasions, including a win here last year. He won at Lucas Oil Speedway back in 22. A win in the MLRA that season when he picked up 4 victories. One of those was here at the Diamond of Dirt Tracks, and he won last year during the Ron Jenkins Memorial. Outside of him, again, is Tyler Wolf, who picked up his first career win in a late model here at the Diamond of Dirt Tracks. And Tyler Wolf in the Army Contractors Gun Shepherd CDS Motorsports ride wrecked his car, totaled it last year, got it put back together middle of the season, and he has been pulling double duty, most of his wins coming in a modified, but he would love to put a feather in his cap and win the Fall Nationals. Tony Jackson, Tyler Wolf, side by side, the green in the air, and we're underway. Fall Nationals night number 2 from the Diamond of Dirt Tracks. Not a great turn for Tyler Wolf as they go 4 wide off of turn 4, and Tony Jackson Jr. Heavy on the loud pedal to get things going, but Mason Oberkramer will lead lap number 1. You can race anywhere on this track right now, and those two front cars are proving it. Mason Oberkramer and Tony Jackson Jr. putting nearly identical laps down, but doing it in two different ways. Tony Jackson running the high side up on the cushion in the Height-Ridden District, and the bottom feeder Mason Oberkramer all the way down on the bottom of the track. Not quite kissing the big white tractor tires through the bottom of the turns, but he's pretty darn close to it as they are putting on a show side by side. Exiting turn number 4, Tyler Wolf sits back in third, and Chris Simpson, who finished second last night, rides in fourth. Key in this, they ran 30 laps last night, and Chris Simpson mentioned it in Victory Lane. You could run anywhere on this track. Obviously, 20 more laps tonight, so you have to conserve your tires. Make sure you have enough for a late run. And you can't win this race in the first 10 laps, but you might lose it. And how about Tyler Wolf? The bearded wonder is back in the picture. He is now turning the fastest lap times of anybody out there right now. He just turned a 16.1. He's close to sitting right where they were in qualifying tonight. During fast time qualifying, he nearly turned faster laps than anybody during qualifying earlier this evening. Up into second around Mason Oberkramer. Kisses the cushion, gets a run, and now he has the crosshairs on the back bumper of Tony Jackson Jr. Chris Simpson, who finished second last night, he is in the picture up in fourth. Gains ground on Mason Oberkramer, got within 1 car length, shoots down to the bottom of the track, and then Tyler Wolf, who was running in second at the time, up over the cushion. Didn't see what happened to him until he spun around too late. He just popped the razor's edge, turned over the ledge, and spun it around. Tyler Wolf, you know, nobody has to have as much angst underneath the helmet right now as the pilot of the number 4 after he was turning bad fast laps. Tried to do a little too much running up on the high side, and he was running in second. And what may have been a pick for many to win the race tonight, Tyler Wolf, night gets spoiled. He's got some time. We've only ran 9 laps so far, but 41 laps to get back to the front, going to be a huge undertaking for Tyler Wolf. Early going, Tony Jackson Jr. and Mason Oberkramer throwing haymakers at one another, with Tony Jackson Jr. running on the high side and Mason Oberkramer bottom feeding around. Tony Jackson was finally able to clear him and get out by 1.8 seconds ahead of Mason Oberkramer. Flip side of that was Tyler Wolf. While they were battling it out side by side, Wolf was able to catch up with the top 2 cars, but then just an error from the pilot of the 4 did his night in. Early going for the first 9 laps. And Trevor Gundaker, who started dead last, has already jumped up 6 spots. He's up to 16th. Gordy Gundaker from 15th to 11th. And Mason Oberkramer going to stop to the high side over in turn number 2. We were just about ready to tell all of these cars to get back into double wide formation behind Tony Jackson Jr., but Mason Oberkramer stops and hasn't asked for any assistance. May have been just doing an adjustment of some kind to the helmet, the steering wheel. Not sure what it was that he had to make an adjustment for. But he will drag his feet and wait for the line to come back around. Tony Jackson Jr. to go back to P1. And then Mason Oberkramer will fall in line. Mason Oberkramer is chosen to go to the inside, Chris Simpson to the outside, then they will shuffle him up back behind row 2 on back. Lights out have gone down the back stretch. Tony Jackson Jr. will slow the field down with Mason Oberkramer and Chris Simpson in tow through the Lucas Oil restart zone. Push down on the loud pedal, and Tony Jackson Jr. gets us back underway. A look from high atop here at Lucas Oil Speedway sees where there is starting to become so many different lines in this track already. There's plenty of grip to be found. Chris Simpson trying to find it up on the top side. And he is able to hang on to second, but he has lost 1.3 seconds to Tony Jackson. Give Frank Heckeness Jr. a big nod as he's up to fourth. Peyton Looney climbing the ladder up to fifth to the top side. Dylan McCowan in sixth. Second, third, and fourth with Simpson leading Oberkramer. And here's a run by Heckeness Jr. Tony Jackson Jr. still leads up to 1.9 seconds. His advantage, and he has not budged from the top side of the track. Start watching lap times now to see if Chris Simpson, as we are now 16 laps in, he's been right at that 2-second deficit between he and Tony Jackson Jr. And they're running nearly identical lines. Chris Simpson just a touch higher. It was 1.9 last time by. This time it's 1.8. So not a lot of difference, just a little. First real side-by-side action is a little deeper in the field, and this is a battle for fifth. Peyton Looney in the 15. Leading Kylan Garner. Garner right on the back bumper, dives down to the inside. Peyton Looney again, we mentioned earlier, a Show Me 100 winner here. Won the April MLRA event back in 2022. His Show Me 100 win came in 2020. And he was not here last night. Still having an extremely good run, running in the top 5. He knows this track pretty well. And Chris Simpson, don't look now, but he is starting to inch closer and closer to Tony Jackson Jr. He's shaving about 1/10 of a second off each lap, and Chris Simpson has now gone to the bottom side of the track over in turns 3 and 4. And Peyton Looney knocking on the back door of Frank Heckeness Jr. He's caught up with the 4th place running car. And Chris Simpson, another 2/10 of a second off. He's catching up with the 56, even through lap traffic. Jordan Yagi was here last night, one of the Northern drivers. In his absence, a couple of other drivers came in, including Peyton Looney, Jimmy Van Zant, Tyler Wolf, who has already had his issues tonight. Lap traffic kind of cost Chris Simpson, as he's got 2 cars now in front of him with Conkright and Van Zant. And Chris Simpson really has to be patient, but he can't be too patient because Tony Jackson Jr. is starting to slip away. You got to think maybe there might be at least one more stoppage at some point in time, as we'll see the cross flags in the air this time by. We have reached the midway point, 25 laps down, 25 laps to go. And Chris Simpson, he's now starting to chomp at the bit a little bit, as Conkright and Van Zant are still battling for position, but Chris Simpson can't get by him, and Tony Jackson now is checking out. Simpson had gotten it down to a 1.1 second deficit, and now it's already back up to 2.9, and Chris Simpson says enough of this. He splits the wicket, goes between Conkright and Jimmy Van Zant. Now we'll see if he can make up all that time. He was picking up speed on the bottom of the track and had to get out of that groove just to make the passes, and now he goes back up to the high rent district, as Tony Jackson Jr. now leads by 3.3 seconds. So lap traffic really did Chris Simpson in there for a little while. Cost him 2 seconds on the track. Mason Oberkramer, Frank Heckeness Jr., and now Kylan Garner up to 5th. And Peyton Looney, we were so focused on the lead running cars. Not sure what happened to Peyton, but he's off the track, it looks like. Don't see him anywhere running out there. So the 15, who was having a top 5 run, that was now gone by the wayside. Mason Oberkramer now dealing with those same 2 lapped cars that gave Chris Simpson fits. Oberkramer around Conkright. Heckeness Jr. will look to the high side, where Oberkramer went down to the bottom of the track to get around the 24. Heckeness Jr. will take a different approach. And Dylan McCowan, who is up into the top 5 now. The Sonic sponsored number 8 out of Urbana, just down the road about 20 minutes or so. Looking to have his second top 5 run. Tony Jackson Jr. setting the pace. He's led all 33 laps so far around Trevor Gundaker. And the lead has not really wavered since Chris Simpson got past the 2-car log jam that was lap traffic. It's been staying right at about 3.2, 3.3 ever since then. Hate to say it, but Chris Simpson, Mason Oberkramer, and Frank Heckeness Jr. may have to have a little bit of luck fall on their side if they're going to have an opportunity at Tony Jackson Jr. Laps winding down, only 15 remain. Jackson Jr. heavy into lap traffic right now to the inside of Chevy Boyer, to the outside of Caden Klatt, and now Christopher Sawyer in front of in the number 12, looking to the inside of him. Or Scott Krigler, that is. The Hillbilly Rocket, Scott Krigler, in the 12 out of Alton, Missouri. Next to go a lap down to Tony Jackson Jr. Yeah, even through all of that lap traffic, Tony Jackson was able to increase his lead over Chris Simpson. And there's Chris Simpson, maybe 2 second-place finishes on successive nights for the Iowa native. Again, he dominated, and whenever he came in during the Ron Jenkins Memorial, he was practically untouchable. Nobody could come anywhere close to Chris Simpson on that evening. No one's come close to touching Tony Jackson Jr. either, with 10 laps to go. He is picking him up and putting him down. Mason Oberkramer now up to 3rd. And he really hasn't budged much from the bottom side of the track either, where Tony Jackson and Chris Simpson have been running around the cushion on the outside. The bottom of the track is where Mason Oberkramer has made his home. In prime time, Tony Jackson Jr. looking for his 4th win of the season. Good to see Frank Heckenast Jr. come in, World of Outlaw guy, as he is now being challenged by Dylan McCowan. This is a battle for 4th. D-Mac had been running top 5 and slowly starting to reel in Heckenast Jr. and now Dylan McCowan up to 4th. And I've been warned. That's all I can say about him. 5 laps to go. Some folks believe in the announcer curse, as Tony Jackson Jr. ahead of Chris Simpson finds more lap traffic in front of him. Chris Simpson's cut it down inside 3 seconds, but he's running out of laps. And an issue for Rex Merrill. He is exiting the track. Looked as though he brushed the wall. And with only 1 caution early, it's been Tony Jackson's race practically from the get-go. As a spin over in turn number 3, Brandon Conkright ahead of 3 wide traffic, including your leader in Tony Jackson Jr. And the last thing in the world Tony Jackson Jr. wanted to see was a caution. He had built up right at a 3-second lead over Chris Simpson, and now he is going to have to fend off Simpson, Oberkramer, and Dylan McCowan in the closing laps after a spin by the 24 of Brandon Conkright. Kid Rocket out of Wamego, Kansas brings out the 2nd caution of the event. The first caution came out on lap number 9, and this one comes out on lap number 47. We've seen long green flag runs, and the caution is the last thing the 56 wanted, and it's the first thing the 32 of Chris Simpson wanted. He knew that there was no way he was going to be able to make up the time on Tony Jackson Jr. Once lap traffic played into the picture, Chris Simpson looked as though his night may be all for naught, and another 2nd place run for him, but now a little bit of life in the cockpit of the 32. And where Chris Simpson going to have to try to get a little creative in these closing 3 laps. He has been running nearly an identical line to Tony Jackson Jr. throughout this race. When he did start to make up time, he had started to go middle of the track, maybe a little bit lower. Maybe he can find that magic in that spot again. That's where Mason Oberkramer has lived tonight. Has been down where the brown is. And then don't count Dylan McCowan out either. He had a good run to pull up to a 3rd place finish last night, make the podium, and he currently runs in 4th. There you see McCowan. Scott Bailey powered Sonic number 8. And Frank Heckenast Jr. was squarely in the top 4 until Dylan McCowan got around him about 10 laps ago. So your top 5, Jackson Jr., Simpson, Oberkramer, McCowan, and Heckenast Jr. Gordy Gundaker sits back in 6th. Kylan Garner 7th. Caden McCorder, haven't heard too much from him tonight. A driver that was blistering fast last night. Tyler Wolf, who was running up in the top 3, had gotten up to 2nd before a self-induced spin. He has crawled back to 11th. And the lights are dark. The green flag in the hand of Bryson Leftwich up on the Foley Equipment flag stand. A 3-lap shootout. Can Tony Jackson Jr. hold off Chris Simpson? As the green flag drops, and we're down to our final 3 laps. Overkramer, bottom of the track. Simpson, middle of the track, has a fantastic run on Tony Jackson Jr. He goes to the bottom side again. Not going to be able to pull off the slider coming off of turn 4, but he will at least draw even with 2 laps to go. Jackson right back to the top. Simpson hot-footing it around the middle of the track. 2 car lengths behind. Goes a groove lower through 3 and 4 this time. Same result as we see the white flag this time by from the Foley Equipment flag stand. A former MLRA champion, Chris Simpson, finishing 2nd in the MLRA points the last 2 years. A 2-car battle for the final half a lap. Tony Jackson Jr., first time down on the track, takes the line away from Chris Simpson. In prime time, Tony Jackson Jr. wins at Lucas Oil Speedway for the first time this year and picks up his 4th win of the season. A 3-lap shootout after a caution comes out when Tony Jackson Jr. had a 3-second lead. That 3-second lead vanished. He had the challenge for 3 consecutive laps from Chris Simpson, and Tony Jackson Jr. is able to hang on and win the finale, take home 10 grand on night number 2 of the Fall Nationals from Lucas Oil Speedway.